Hey there, I'm Kevin.
And I'm Jamie, and we're your co-hosts for Two Clicks in a Pod.
Join us as we explore our missed times, stories, and memories due to divorce and a 1,000-mile separation.
I can't wait. You ready to get into it, Kev?
I am. Hey, Jamie, you think they're going to swear?
Oh, yeah. Consider yourselves warned. I'm your podcast helper.
That's right.
I got to steer the ship, Dad.
That's right. Got to put
that's what I do.
Put a rudder in the water. Yep, I've been fighting boat problems all weekend, so that's been a very stressful weekend. Weekend stress with a Mastercraft issue. So
I actually went to the beach yesterday, and we were driving over the bridge, as you often do, to get to a beach, and all the boats were out. And I said, "Oh, this is the point of my beach drives where I always get boat envy," because I miss being on a boat on a regular basis. And I was with Jess Borelli, and she was like, "Oh, I know." And she was talking about how her dad used to have a boat down at a marina in New Jersey as well. And I was like, yeah, it's just but then I heard you say, I've been dealing with boat problems all weekend. And then I remember, I'm like, and this is why I don't have a boat.
Yeah,
I don't know that I can afford a boat, but yeah.
Well, yeah, it's
but
there's some logic behind the problem, but I don't think it was. There's a number of things, but I've spent. We were trying to get out. We've been trying to get out on the boat, and we made an effort to get out on the boat,
on the water.
And Saturday was the day, and then Saturday kind of came and went. There always seems to be something in the way, and so Sunday was the day, and I just had it was similar to the Mastercraft when you guys came to the lake and we went through that overheat engine issue.
Yes.
Exact same thing. Yeah. Oh, so anyway, what's going on new there? What beach did you go to?
We went to, for my first time, I went to Ocean City, New Jersey. Have you ever heard of Ocean?
I have.
You don't look all that excited. Yeah, it was nice.
That's where I was going to actually put the bus if I was going to bring the bus for the Def Leppard show.
Oh, all right. Well, so
that's where the campground was, as close to that.
This is a lot of people go to this they call it the shore. If you're going to New Jersey, people call it the shore. If you go to Delaware, people call it the beach. This is what I have picked up living up here in the Northeast. At least this is my opinion, I should say. I don't know why that is. I don't know why if you're in Delaware it's the beach, which is what obviously you went to the beach. You didn't go to the shore. But people who go to New Jersey seem to mostly call it the shore. Anyway, so it was Ocean City, New Jersey. I'd never been before. We just did a little day trip. It's very easy. It's an hour and a half drive. Plenty of parking to then, you buy your tag to go onto the beach. And Jess grew up going here. So she's like, yeah, don't even bring a chair. Don't bring an umbrella. We'll rent it when we get there. It's just easier because they set it up. They drive it in. I'm like, perfect. Works for me. We have had like a remarkable August in terms of weather. I don't know what. Well, that hurricane came through, which I think definitely cooled it off. But even prior to that hurricane, our August has been very mild, just really nice weather. So yesterday it was like 76 and sunny all day. So it was beautiful, just a really nice day. It was just me and Jess with the kids. They were in the ocean all day and doing the boardwalk. So we did the rides we did the beach till 5. That was when the guy was like, all right, ladies, I'm packing up the chairs for the day. So we were the last ones there in the rentals. And then we did the boardwalk, got some food and did the rides, and it was great. And I am very excited to report that we are now the proud owners of 2 hermit crabs, Dad.
Oh, you brought them home?
Yes. So this is the
They don't
best.
prohibit that. You can't. That's crossing state lines.
Well, yeah, I had to declare my
You
live
check with immigration.
yeah, my immigration. ICE was
You
there at
got. You'll have
the state
ICE
line
will be knocking on the door there here today.
knocking it down. Let me see in that shell. Um so Parker and Cena, they take off down the boardwalk to get some food. Reese and Ava were still in the ocean. They were like, we want to go on the boardwalk. Like, go for it. So they go, they come back, and Parker's like, and they're so excited. They're like, we know you're going to say no, but just consider it. And I'm like, what? And I knew it was to buy something. And he goes, Mom, they have free hermit crabs. Can I please have a hermit crab? And I'm like, well, honey, they're not free. No, it says, it's a sign. It says free hermit crabs. I was like, all right, well, to get the crab, we got to have something to put it in. So do they have something to put these hermit crabs in? Their eyes are real big. We'll be right back. So they go back to the boardwalk and they come back and they're like, yes, we've got to buy a cage for the hermit crabs. But we went to some different shops and Parker's like, I found this one. It's cheaper. So we're going to buy the cage over there. Then we're going to go get the free hermit crabs. And I go, honey, I don't think it works that way. And he's like, no, it says it, And I'm like, Parker, they give you the hermit crab for free if you buy the cage from them or the container. He's like, oh, and sure enough, we go back and we look at the sign, free hermit crabs, real big, with purchase of cage. So that was a lesson of, Parker, you've always got to read the fine print. Got to read the fine print. So they were, oh my God, Dad, they were so excited about these hermit crabs. And I said,
but he did have a moment of entrepreneurship right there, going to buy a cheaper container. And I thought he probably would have come back with a dozen hermit crabs if he could have gotten the containers for, half off, and he'd be peddling those things today.
That's what Jess and I said. We're like, you know what? They were incredibly resourceful. They did all this on their own. They asked the questions. Yeah. I go, all right, we're not going to do it right now because we're going to get dinner. We're going to do the ride. So go find out what time does the shop close. And I told Parker, I go, you got to text Dad, make sure Dad doesn't care. And he's like, all right. Because Chris, of course, is like, well, they have to have a larger shell to grow into. You got to make sure you get a bigger shell. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know any of this. I was like, all right, of course, Chris knew. So we get the little cage and it comes with some gravel and we buy the extra shell. It was $28. $28 later, I've got that. I've got 2 hermit crabs and we're headed back. And they're just the whole drive home. I'm like, just make sure the lid is on the container. I don't need any hermit crabs crawling around the car, because the Brellies, of course, got 2 as well. So we're coming home with 4 in separate cages. So we get home and Chris sees the little cage. He's like, this is not gonna do. This is just, they don't have any space to walk. Like, this is not good. So we are now, our $28 purchase, we are in for $100 because we now are, it's showing up tomorrow. We ordered it last night. Chris, of course, had to get him a better aquarium. We now have a full, a small aquarium coming with sand for hermit crabs. He bought him this little hut thing. And we got a bowl for food coming and a bowl for water because they got to have food and water. And we've got extra shells for them to grow into. And
I didn't know you had to buy shells for them to grow into. I didn't know that.
Yeah, because they get bigger and they basically outgrow the shell they come in, which is little. It's about, I don't know, the size of
quarter.
Yeah. A quarter, and then a little deeper than that, and then.
Well, what do they do when they exist on the beach? They just go drag a shell out of the ocean, or what?
Yeah, you never seen one just kind of crawling around in a little shell. They have it on their back.
Well, I've seen them, but they got to go to a dealership and trade that sucker in and upgrade every couple of years.
They got to find a bigger home, Dad. It's like the rest of us. You have your starter house, and then you have a kid, so you outgrow it. You got to get a little bit bigger. I'm still in my starter house, but you scale up over time.
So what part of their body do they stick in the crab and haul around with? I mean, is there just a little? I don't guess I'm gonna have to research that. I'm really perplexed by that. I didn't know
Oh,
that they. I didn't. Well, it's kind of like
we
a snake reskinning or losing its skin, but
it
they grow it
literally. I
back.
don't know how they keep themselves with that shell attached to them,
Hmm.
other than to tell you they do. And when they come out, their little eyes and their little things, and they crawl around, and it's bizarre. But Parker is like all about this. It's like his pet, and he's
Is there
looked
a
up.
little tube of Gorilla Glue in the kit? That
They just wedge their little asses in there. I guess they just
that's
kind of
right.
wedge themselves in there. They
That
back that
that
ass up.
baby's got back. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
girl that
She's
looks
got
good.
back.
Won't you back that ass up? Yeah, they just back
Yep.
up into that shell, wedge on in there. I don't know. It was
They got to parallel park into it, huh? They got to
yeah,
bring in the back
exactly.
end and then kind of snuggle up
Steering
front. So
steering wheel to steering wheel.
how's Brady going to handle this little playmate?
Well, Brady doesn't even know that they're there. I was more like, keep it up. We don't need the cat knowing these are here. God only knows what Gary would do, but um it just cracks me up because I'm kind of like, sure, we'll throw $20 at this, and I'm like, if they die, they die. And Chris is like,
Hmm.
you can't bring a pet into this home and not care for it. I'm like, it's a hermit crab. Technically, it's two hermit crabs, but so we're in it to win it now. Like, I mean, Dad, who knows?
That's awesome. That's Chris's story with Gary. I mean,
Yes,
Gary Gary has Gary's like hockey. I mean, he's been $1 million invested to keep Gary alive over these last 12 years,
yeah,
13 years,
best cap there
probably
is.
15 years.
Yeah, yeah. Well, now Gary's like throwing up like all the time. So there's just like
How old is the Gary?
Gary is 15. Yeah.
How long does a cat live?
Well,
We know it's 15.
long. Well, remember my cat growing up that we had, Prissy, my first
Yeah.
pet. With mom. Prissy lived till she was 22 years old. I
Oh
have
my
said,
gosh.
and she talk about 9 lives. I mean, I have said this from the get go. I said Reese will probably move out. Like, everybody thinks Gary's dying. People come over, oh, your poor cat. That cat's gonna die any day. I go, that cat ain't going anywhere. I said Reese will move out of this house before Gary dies. I bet my life on it. Like, he'll be dragging that little, his little arthritic leg around and throwing up everywhere. And it's
Gary's not going anywhere. That's like giving somebody free room and board at the Hampton Inn and telling them to leave.
Yeah,
They ain't going anywhere. Gary's not
he's
going
not going
anywhere
anywhere.
until
He's
the
not
food
going
supply
anywhere.
runs out.
He's
That
not
and
going anywhere.
and he's got good health care.
He's got great health care.
Yeah, he gets his teeth brushed about every 3 months. I mean, it's all good.
It's all good.
He's not going to die of gum disease. That's for sure.
It's all good. So yeah, so now we're we've got the cat, we've got the hermit crabs,
Man,
and we got Brady.
Yep.
So life is good in the Edwards house. Just I can't.
I'm gonna go find an album and send it to Chris. There was a band kind of in the '60s. Hermits. Have you ever heard of Herman's Hermits?
No.
Yeah. Yep. There's a band called Herman's Hermits. So
okay.
Chris probably knows them.
He probably knows them, but yeah. So that's that. I don't know. Parker it's actually kind of cute. He's like researched how to clean it and how often should I clean it. Now, will he actually clean it? No. But he'll tell me, Mom, it's been 3 months. We need to clean the hermit crab shelter, the new shelter, but he hasn't named his yet. Reese named hers Dolly, as in Dolly Parton, but not Dolly Parton, but gosh. Dolly. Yep. I don't know where that came from. And then he's still thinking on his name. So, yeah.
What color are they? Are they kind of clear in color?
I think they're more kind of brown.
Brown. I thought
yeah.
They could kind of. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. That sounds like and Ocean City is
New Jersey.
Not far.
Yeah.
New Jersey is where we drove through to get to the
close to Atlantic
Lowe's.
City. Yeah.
Actually went down there to get the ferry in that area.
Right. So where you went to go to Cape May, it's not. Yeah, it's close to where we were when we went to see Def Leppard, and it was a great day. We had a really nice day, and as you know, we're winding down on summer. So, I mean, here's the deal. I went to Wawa Sunday morning before we pulled out to drive to the beach, and this is when I know that life is transitioning for the better, Dad. because lo and behold, pumpkin spice coffee is
It's back. It's
Wawa.
back.
It's back, baby. So I am like, life is good. I've got pumpkin spice coffee in my life again. I've got hockey starting on Sunday, and I've got 2 new hermit crabs to nurture. So life is great.
Yeah, it's funny. I've noticed. Well, I'm trying to think. I've seen pumpkins and Halloween stuff.
Oh yeah, it's already out at Home
Walgreens.
Depot. Yeah.
In Walgreens, I think for at least almost the full month of August.
Oh,
It has to-
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy.
You know what you need to get for the house there, Dad, is the
What's
like
that?
it like the it's like the 20-foot tall skeleton that everybody has in their yards. Do people do
Why?
people
No,
Why
well, we've never been here. Well, I can't
Why?
say that. The first we were here the first year during Halloween, and I think we
Well,
nobody
you just
came.
made
Number
it
one,
because you just made it though because you moved in October, so that would
yeah,
be a rush.
23rd.
But
So this is we were here last October too.
Right. But this is like
But I
really,
don't
I consider
remember.
this your second real October, and you say
Yeah.
why, and I say why not?
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. You got to find your why. That's
Find
another
your why.
foreshadow.
Find your why.
That's another foreshadow. You got to
I tell you
find your
what,
why. If you don't have a why, you don't have anything to live for.
these people
So-
here in Delaware County love the giant skeleton, and what they do is some of them just keep it up year round, and they decorate it with the next holiday. So like Christmas comes, skeleton's got a Santa hat. Thanksgiving, they've got they got turkeys out there, with the skeleton. It just goes all year long. It's incredible. Oh, some of them will even during football season, they'll throw like an Eagles jersey on them, because
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
why not?
Anyway, yeah, we've got the wedding coming up.
Yeah, sorry, we had the wedding
on the
coming
20th,
up. Yeah.
So that's going to be good to see everybody, and that's in final planning stages and just making sure we have everything ironed out. So
yeah, I should have said that. We are looking forward to that. Looking forward to, obviously the time with family and sharing and that time with you and Suzanne. So that'll be good. That's come fast though, for sure, right? I mean, at least for me, it feels like it.
Yeah, it even when it was 2 months away, it seemed like it was going to be, day after tomorrow, and it's getting to be day after tomorrow. So it's rapidly getting here, and everybody that's coming, I know is looking forward to it. So that'll be fun. It'll be a good, quick in and out weekend. But I say that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and everybody heading home Sunday. Royal wedding in Gallatin, Tennessee.
The royal wedding.
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right.
Lord. Well, I sent you a little outline and just kind of what I had been thinking about, and it's been for a while thinking about this of whether to bring this topic forward or not. But
yeah, I like it.
I thought it was a good one to just think about. We talk about. I brought up in the podcast at an early age just what my history has been in the past of going and growing up in Mishawaka, Indiana, and living under the Golden Dome of Notre Dame, and just being raised Catholic for many, many years. Actually, so much what I could guess call a practicing Catholic for about 30 years. That's a little bit longer than true, but anyway, pretty close. And this came forward for a number of reasons. The first, just in what we've kind of shared in the past on some off pod conversations about faith and belief in God and strength of one of that knowledge and what people truly believe in. What is your purpose and what's anchoring the purpose, and that itself, I think, resonates to me only when I really sit down and we did a whole thing about reflection, but just looking back, reflecting back, me working on early chapters of my memoir or my book. It's just a book of memories is what it is, and just how influential those years really were. And it's, you know me well enough to know that when I start really putting my head around any topic of belief or anything that really brings emotion and warm feeling and feel goods, and whether it's love for your family or love for others or servicing and helping other people, that's one thing that I felt, just my religious upbringing really established me rooted early in belief of something. And whether it was belief in what anybody and anyone else might believe in, it just resonated to me in such a emphatic, real way at such a young age. And when I say young, think about it. You go to kindergarten when you're basically 5 years old, first grade when you're 6. So I was, in Mishawaka, I was there from 57 until 67. So not very long, 10 years of that time frame. But every time I was in school, I was going to Catholic school at St. Monica's there in Mishawaka, right there on the St. Joe River. And that school being adjacent to the church, we were really going to the church first moving to Mishawaka ahead of me even going to school. So it was always about a church environment. And I know even after the divorce and, Colleen and taking the family and going to Atlanta and going into Florida, that at one point in time, even in Orlando, I remember coming in for Christmas and going to Christmas, service with you guys, and just how impactful that Presbyterian church was, and the minister that was there with the whole Christmas story or Christmas play of where he would actually perform a little 2-3 act play of Christ's life and how meaningful that was. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that just the reverence of worship, the reverence of growing up in a church environment. It's not that it's not that we were perfect, but we really didn't get away with a whole lot of stuff. I mean, it was a very disciplined education, very disciplined. Being in church, even as a youngster, there was no running around, and you didn't have kids dodging from here to there under the pews. I don't remember at that day and age that there were playrooms and there were probably nurseries as well.
Right.
I can't imagine that there weren't, but I would have been in one rather than observing one. But just how much that really influenced my life, and in a belief in God and something of order. And I'm picking and choosing my words carefully here, but just how that anchored me into being a good person.
Yeah.
I feel, or better yet, I truly believed what I was told. And it wasn't that with time, and as you get older and leaving Indiana and going into Williamsburg, and yet still being in a Catholic environment, but it was filled with other students that were non-Catholic as well. We weren't having to go to church every morning like we did in Indiana. I mean, that was the first thing that we did when we got to school, is we loaded up and we went over there and sat in mass for the first hour, came back, had breakfast. And taking communion at that time, you had to actually fast ahead of communion. You couldn't eat. So that was protocol. And just becoming an altar boy at such a young age, how I worked my butt off to just learn the prayers, learn what the recitals, what they needed to be. It wasn't in English, it was in Latin. So you think about that as a second, third, fourth grader. I mean, that's pretty deep rooted conviction on anybody's accord at that age to say, "Hey, I want to do that.
Yeah.
That's something I want to do. I want to serve doing that."
Well, and
So
you think too, so much of what you're saying, and you hear this a lot with Catholic and Catholicism, but everything you're saying, it's such a there's ritual, there's routine, and to your point about growing up in that, I do think being children being in that environment and learning routine and ritual, even if it's just through their Sundays, through their Saturday, whatever that time in church is, like, that is very powerful and influential and, quite frankly, good. They say, you hear all the time, children thrive on routine. And I do think you having that in your life, and grandma and grandpa raising you guys in that environment, probably had a very impactful way, even yes, with religion, belief in God, all of that. But I just mean even just the structure of what you got out of that. And you talk about it made you a good person, which maybe, I may argue, I think a lot of things can make people good people, but I think what religion absolutely does is there's so much positivity in the message. If it's the sermon or the Sunday school, you're just being inundated with positivity, I think. And I think that is very powerful, which leads you, maybe from my perspective, it makes you want to be a good person because you hear these stories of what doing good, being good, the success that came out of that, even through hardship or whatever. But it makes you want to be a good person.
Well, yeah, the ritual of having to go to confession, every so often before and going through your first confession, the whole 7 sacraments of the Catholic Church. I mean, that it always seems like there was a checklist to do. You had to memorize what the 7 sacraments were. And of course you went through that whole doctrine or the whole beliefs, the catechism, as I mentioned earlier in one of the earlier episodes. But just that sense of order, like you say, as a child, probably, you know what the 10 commandments are. You know that you can't, dishonor your mother and your father. Those things are just, it's not to say that you don't. I mean, I got my mouth washed out for soap with a bar of lava soap one time for saying a cuss word, and it wasn't a good cuss word. It was a GD cuss word, and I don't know where that came from, other than I blame it on my dad. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
so I mean, but even in continuing in higher education, you would see the clergy, the nuns, and the priests, and everybody servicing others, or offering service, offering their time, offering their lives to represent something for others to look up to. I mean, they were there to bring people and make sure that they did understand and have a relationship, with God, or with the Lord, or within the entities of the Trinity. It's just, to me, in looking back, and no, everybody has, it doesn't make you necessarily a good person, but it continued in that environment. You were always, in my opinion, not consistently, you weren't angels, but you were just aware of other things that just,
Yeah.
that some people didn't have, or better yet, something that you strive to get and bring forward in them. And
Yeah.
with each 5 years of age and moving up in that, and along with that, even afterwards, and moving to Williamsburg, and knowing that we would go to church maybe once a week on Fridays, it seemed, or it was every other week. And I was always volunteering to be, the altar boy there, or asked to be. And it's just, you were still part of the actual liturgy, or the ceremony, and
Mhm.
and part, it was in the participation of such. So
Yeah.
it just, in looking back at that time, that was very strong in my roots. It remained in my roots, to the point of, when I say give back time, even though we had a blast in New Mexico the summer after I graduated, but we were going there with Father Jerry to help him take care of the parish while this priest was on vacation. So these things were these things were just around me. And for whatever reason, the older you get and you start reflecting on those things, and it's the same way going back to the reunion and how impactful that was, of just seeing these kids that you went to school with in that environment, and how caring and giving and forgiving and, better yet, enjoyable it was to see these people once again. They truly, truly cared about you. It wasn't just a touch and go, and the whole Christian awakening movement at that point in time, where we were able to go on a weekend retreat with your classmates. And it wasn't like I went to one, I went to multiple ones. And over that multiple times of doing so, you really got to get with people and get up close and personal and know who they were and what they believed in, and understand your story of what you struggled with and what they struggled with. It just brought a real sense of humanity and understanding about who people were and what their struggles were each and every day, and no differently than yours. And we always, you always feel like you're the shyest kid in the class, or you're the one left out, or everybody feels that way, is what I take from all of this. But, and as as you get older, and Shane was baptized in the church, you were baptized into the church, we were going to church. And then all of a sudden, when we left the Rowlett area and moved to the Mesquite house in the Mesquite area, I'm not sure if there was anything really unique about the church in Rockwall, other than people that I worked with initially probably were in that church. That, we had a neighbor that lived in the Linda Vista area that I went to work with every day. We carpooled together. They were members of that church. So there was still a sense of community of people that you knew. Going to Mesquite and the Mesquite house, that was more of a withdrawing away from what really was, I think, a very good, close-knit family or group of neighbors right there, that just pulled your mom and I in and kind of stuck them under their wings and watched us, like mother hens, is exactly what they were. We were one of the youngest ones of the group there. Not the youngest, but there was others. But it just brought a sense of good community, and that's my point, is that church, it's not about the building. It's not about anything like that. It's about really what you believe in, and that comes through loud and clear to me even to this day at 70, and looking back at age 27 or 25 and 30, 1985, we were still trying to get to church in Mesquite. It was hard to find one that we really enjoyed going to, and dragging you to the church. And it was kind of a hardship, and it became, it kind of came like the boat experience. It was a lot of work to get there. And yet we still wanted to do that, and attempted to do that. And as we know, the story kind of just disintegrated, fell apart. And I guess the point I wanted to bring this conversation up in relates to what you told me earlier, and then I'll let you talk a little bit. But when you're not involved in something that's strong and holds you together in belief, it fractures and falls apart, or it fractures and just goes away. The good feelings aren't there. There's not a purpose. There's not the why. In my instance, it was me worrying about me. I wasn't worrying about everybody else. I was too concerned of finding me versus trying to keep the glue together of knowing what really was there. And sure enough, shit hits the fan, and a divorce is happening 2 years later. So there's still a lot of guilt about that. There's still a lot of pain on that. And so my belief, and to go back, and it's like, I can remember going back throughout my history and moving out full time to the lake, and actually meeting with the priest at the Catholic Church there in Mount Vernon, and seeing what my options were as a divorced Catholic. And then they just weren't, you couldn't get to participate at that time. You couldn't take the sacrament. You go to church.
Yeah.
You could still have reverence within the church. But anyway, so my point in all of this is, all of that, regardless of what I would call turning my head and walking the other way, walking away rather than walking to, and still trying to find a foundation in what I really revered early on in my life through the first half of my education and my first parenting experience. That was very, and it's, my point is it's still very important today. I still hold it dear. I still look at what the good was, only, and that wasn't because of, God throwing me away. I threw him away, is my point. I let that part of me go instead of holding on and trying to
Rely on your faith.
try to figure that out and realize what the good can be out of that. And what I'm seeing in this today, and the reason for bringing it up today is just to say to you, and I've had this conversation with my mother, I've had this conversation with your mom, when she was converting, to get married in the church. I mean, I think people make such a big deal about faith being difficult and belief being difficult. And I just don't understand that. And I'm going to ask you that because I believe in you regardless of what you do or the mistakes you made or what you don't do. But my belief in you is as strong as a belief that I have to know that there's somebody, a higher order, a higher God, a higher being. I mean, I believe that one of many prophets, the one named Jesus, is the Son of God. I'm a Christian. I believe that. And to me, belief is just that's kind of like unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much the same. You can hurt me, just don't do as I do. Don't cast me aside. Take me back. And that's what the Lord does.
Yeah.
You can sin, you can do what's wrong. I don't care what you've done wrong. He's going to love you anyway. That's his plan. Adam and Eve ate the apple. That's that. And with that, there was a punishment, but the punishment that was just his plan. I mean, he knew that was going to happen. He knew that there would be sin in the world. He knew that there would be sinners in the world. And what does he do? But he sends one of himself down to live and walk, and in a very humanistic form, not get angry. He gets angry a couple times as his death is near upon him, but he's there to set a lesson that love is greater than anything that anger can be.
Yeah.
And he was here for a reason, and the reason was fulfilled. And the reason was to show all of us that no matter how far we've turned away, as long as we believe, as long as we understand, as long as we can forgive ourselves and forgive others, and better yet, look to him to say, I'm not worthy, but you made me worthy because you put your own son down here to say, I'm going to make up for all of what's gone on and allow you salvation to join me in heaven with belief in me. And so I'm just curious, knowing what you've said before, but
where I'm at with
I'm
all
not
that.
saying I'm not saying you can't, that you can believe in everything, but really you can if you investigate it. And as I did at your age, and as I did in my troubles, I just said, well, I'm going to put that on the shelf. I'm not so sure. And I did that even in high school at one time, of just saying, well, this seems like, is this really real? And then, as soon as I started doubting and going to that, and I go to the awakenings, and then I can just see it around. I can see it in everybody's face at a weekend, and just the love that comes out of the people that you thought you weren't even able to touch during classroom time. You would never even approach, and then you're the same people. But so I'm just curious that and I say that for a number of reasons, that just in reflection, and it's something that is, to me, really, really stronger as I've said to you earlier, present day, just because of immersing myself back into, spending some time talking to the Lord, spending some time reading devotional, just getting refamiliar to know that, seeing what the stories were back when he walked this earth and who didn't believe and why didn't,
Well,
and the 12
yeah.
that followed him didn't believe. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, it's
you've really almost gone back to your early days of your life and in educating yourself. A lot of
mm-hmm,
we, like you said, we've shared stories of books you've read and that have that, just to be direct, are in the tone of a Christian tone, and coming from people who believe, that God sent his son Jesus Christ down here to die for our sins. And I'm not, where I'm at with this is that I know what, I know why you, I don't know if worry is the right word, but why you are asking me this, because as a believer, as someone who has very strong faith in this message, and that this is for you, this is fact, like this is what is going to happen. My mom is the same way, and I believe when she gets upset, it's this fear of like, but I want you to be with me in eternal life that I know I'm going to get, and I want you to meet me there when it's your time, right? And I'm not saying I don't. I'm not saying I've had a couple things in this last year that I believe, I think you asked me, do you feel you've seen the work of God? That do you feel like you've witnessed that? And I do. I see it, and I, not sharing too much because that's going to be shared in a future episode, but yeah, I've seen good. Um I've seen good things happen to good people that live a life of uh, live a true Christian life. I mean, one of my best friends is probably one of we tease her about Meredith, about being the best person I know. I mean, I don't say that lightly. She is
mm-hmm,
she is the embodiment of good, and she's also a devout Christian. And that doesn't fall lightly on me, that this person who lives this life has seen good come when she had no reason to believe good would be coming.
mm-hmm,
And we would tell her of all these things that just kept working out for her, putting her in a position to better her life, move on, find a rebirth, that I don't know, Dad, that those same things would have come to me, because I don't I don't live the way she lives. And those things hit me hard, like, well, but anybody can. Anybody can live a life of a Christian life where it's not about you're always right. It's just about not being selfish, not always thinking of yourself, thinking of others, being charitable, being that's how, this is how I see it. Approaching life with, I want to be the best version I can be. I think Daryl even said that when we talked, when he said, if you just be the best version of yourself, I think that, to me, that translates to being a good person. That translates to somebody walking a path of good, whether that be Christianity or their religion. I think that's where I just get hung up on that. What makes me question, it's not about that I think religion is not good. I don't think that. I do think religion is good. I think that community is beautiful. I think it does a lot of wonderful things. But we say it's the Christian faith is the quote unquote it's the right faith. It's the faith. But like, this is
Yeah,
where
but
I
that's
get
not
hung
my
up. But I know
that's
it's
not
not
my
your message.
message.
It's not your
That's
message, but
not
it's
religion or faith. Religion or what practice you want to practice isn't my issue. I
no,
mean,
I know, but you're asking me what got me maybe off my path.
yeah.
And my where I started questioning this is just that thing of like, well, wait a second. So which one is it? Is it, you know, do the Islamic people have it right? Is it the Hindu people? Is it the Christians? Is it the is you mean people Jewish? I don't know, Dad. That's where I started questioning it of like, well, like anything else in life, when you start seeing all these options, it feels like to me it tarnishes the sanctity of what you believed your whole life to be the only way, the only message, the right one. And so I've come in I'm you think about life being a circle of what made where you start and where you evolve and where you end, and I think I'm like, I'm coming back to it where I place again, I see the value of faith. Your point of being, you saying I believe in Jesus just as I believe in you and me as a person, and I very much appreciate that message. I agree with that message. I believe in humanity. I believe in people. I believe in good. I believe that good things come to good people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not, to me, that's not by accident, whether that's divine intervention or prayer or karma, right? But I can tell you this. I can tell you this right now. I want to be like my friend Meredith.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what makes her that way. And she said this to her new friend. She goes to church every Sunday, and she asked, "Would you go to church with me?"
Mm-hmm.
And it was like today? And she's like, "No, not like today, or like it doesn't have to be next week, but I need you to know that this is an important part of my life that I gave up for a long time, and I'm back, and it's important to me, and I'm not going
Yeah.
to give that up again." And I was so proud of her for that, for just standing by that, recognizing what she feels has helped her life, made her feel better, and the work she does in her community with being so involved with her children and their youth group, and helping her kids to grow in their faith in Christ and what that is doing for her children. And I think it's awesome, Dad. I do. And yeah, I mean, I'm envious of that. And I I can change that. I can, we've talked about this. Reese is very interested in religion, very interested in learning about, the life of Jesus and what all that meant. And why would I not want to feed that? That's not a bad thing. Of all the things kids could be interested in, like,
Yeah.
that's a great thing. So I don't know if that
Well,
answers your question, but
it does, and I'm not here to again. It's not about who you believe in or what you believe in. It's not
yeah.
about religion. It's about just having a belief in. I can express what I believe in, and I don't have a problem with somebody being Islamic or there's a great documentary on Muhammad and finding the Islamic movement, and he wrote the book of Quran, and this documentary is again just brings back knowledge that I had in taking world religion in college, but
Mhm.
most of the Old Testament is recognized and brought forward in the book of Quran and understanding, and they acknowledge that you know Jesus had something going on, and he was just actually in this pretty much, and I'm not trying to quote that I know everything about it, but what was brought forward is that he believed that he was a messenger of God. Now, whether whether he was the son of God, he may not believe that. He thought that he was a messenger as well from God that brought a movement into a part of the world where Christianity as well existed, and just it was kind of the second generation of what he felt. But it was total peace and peaceful behavior. It wasn't now. There came a point in time, as with any religion or religious wars, but they did have to fight for what they believed in. And I guess my point here is just that I know it's hard to sometimes, and I brought it up because I like I said, seems like a fairy tale. We really didn't study the Old Testament going, as a part of what we were indoctrinated or in studying in Catholicism. It was mostly all based upon the New Testament, which was the New Covenant. So,
right. Well, it's based on Christianity. Yeah.
And Islam was the same. I mean, that to go back and to recognize, Moses and the other prophets prior in the Old Testament. I mean, and I think anybody that questions, and that's why I did want to bring up this Does God Exist book, it's written by Todd Brim, and he actually he's an investigator. He's actually a detective. He's a ex-Navy guy, but he's a detective for Louisville police work, and was a detective for many, many years, and then went to get his ministry degree and PhD, and then wrote this book about Does God Really Exist? And he goes through and does a great job of looking at the atheist versus the theist, the believer and the non-believer, and the scientific proof of one side and the other side. And sad to say, when you say you don't know that you believe, the atheists believe that there's not a God, and they're all academia nuts, but they haven't had the ability to prove that God doesn't exist.
Yeah.
There's too much evidence that there is a higher order, higher being.
Yeah.
There's a plan. There's scientific evidence that, why are the galaxies moving away versus coming closer? But there is just so much science behind what order there is, that it didn't come out of Darwinism.
Yeah.
And even these evolutionist believers, even Darwin himself put a study out there, put a proposal out there, but in the end, he couldn't really sign off on it to be totally factual, because he was missing something. There was something missing that didn't close the circle, as you said. So if you can't close the circle, you haven't really proven that it's there.
Right.
Einstein, same way. This whole, the whole E equals MC squared. He had to create a false parameter, or a unknown that became a known only because it proved his theorem. So it's like grabbing a random 3 that fits the equation and saying, hey, the equation works.
Right.
But
you make it work rather than knowing it works. Yeah.
And that's what's cool about this book, is he documents those facts in there. And that's the first half of it is that. And then he goes in and actually puts down his detective work on showing why God does exist. Let me show you what the atheists say. And it's just nothing more than a statement. They can't prove any of it. They haven't taken the effort to prove it. They've fallen short. So, my point is not to worry about seeing you in heaven or not. I know that I will see you in heaven. I'm not worried about that. And just you could just thank me that you were baptized.
Well, but is that all it takes? Because my kids aren't. I mean, these are
No, it's not all it.
these are the
It's
questions that
not
I
all it
say, Dad.
takes.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
not all that it takes. But
Well, I will
I
say
just,
this.
and that's all I ask of you is that, with Landry getting baptized, obviously she sees something that at a young age, and you were in the same situation.
Oh yeah.
Most kids are. Kelsey was in the same situation. I just feel it as my father responsibility to say, as you kind of make sense out of all the mistakes that you've made and all
Mm-hmm.
the errors of your ways that you've made, and realize and dissect why it was and what created it. And we've talked about that. Past wouldn't be the same, life wouldn't be the same, but still, temptation is temptation, and
Mm-hmm.
doing good is harder at times than doing bad. And it's like I said, you just have to look around and realize, instead of looking around and saying how miserable things are, just look around and really look at how good things are.
Count
And
your blessings.
without that, you could be the most, sorry son of a bitch in the world. You could be the most heaviest guy, riddled with depression. I mean, it's easy to see the negative, but opportunist and seeing the opportunity out here. And that's one thing that I look at, is as hard as that I know the transition to get here was, and as hard as I feel, we still are on a inclination of learning and growing our new home in Nashville. Things are still good. I mean, there's nothing. It may not be what I first thought and I first expected, but I'm happy. I'm fine. I'm good. I enjoy Susanna, my partner, my future wife. I mean, I'm really excited about that, and that's been a long time coming. And you can always look to say, well, what's wrong? What didn't I do today? And what didn't I get fixed today? Or what was I going to do and I didn't get done today? But it's like my dad always said, that's just life. Some
It's just
things
a
are just
day.
life, and it's just a day. Don't
Yeah.
don't take it as seriously as you take it. So, I just wanted to bring it forward because I know, like you said, that Reese is really inquisitive, and I think I hope that you, and I would as well, just let her explore and
Yeah.
learn and check it out for herself, or do whatever she needs to do, and
Yeah.
want you to realize and just enforce in her that it's important. If she's wanting to explore that, she needs to.
Mm-hmm.
This is it's not going to come without looking, and it's not going to come without, and she's not of the age to want to spend the time. But this is my point: as you get older and you look back, and I go back to me and looking and working on this book, I'm not satisfied to just tell the story. I investigate the story behind the story. I want to know what started it.
The point that I will agree with you is it is a powerful thing. Faith is a powerful thing. Faith, I do believe, can make miracles happen. Whether that is an act of God or an act of humanity, I do believe that is driven by faith, and that's a beautiful thing. However you get
Yeah.
there, that's a beautiful thing. And I will tell you, I remember one day when Julie and I were younger, I don't even know, Dad, why we were talking about this, but this goes back to and I really do look forward to reading that book. It sounds very interesting. But the the point about science and disproving it, and for whatever reason, one day we were sitting there, this is when we were like in teenagers, and we were talking about faith and believing. And we were like, well, okay, let's just say, you don't believe in God. You don't believe in this. And we just kept going back. But like, well, then how did this happen? And how was, how was there Earth? How are there planets? Well, then there's this. They say this. They say the Big Bang. But it's like, right. But then like the molecules that were formed that created that, like, where did those come from? Like everything comes from something. And that was what we would always come back to, where we were like, It's got to be God. Because like somebody had to start it, somebody had to create it. There had to be a creator because everything comes from something. But how do you get the something without a creator? So I do always come back to that. Like, well, I don't believe we all just appeared. I don't, there's people out there that think we're all living in a simulation, that we're all like in a computer program. I mean, there's people that believe this, Dad, that like none of this is real. I don't believe that. I mean,
No.
I believe that we are, human beings on this planet doing good, doing bad, whatever. But I would say, when you're like, do you believe in a higher power? Absolutely. 100% I do. 100%. And I believe that, again, I believe in faith. I believe in humanity, and I believe in and that people can make amazing things happen. That's where I'm at right now.
And that's very true. That's a great way to sum it up. Right now, I'm with you. Just to be the best you can be, the best person that you can be. I mean, and Daryl brought it forward in great fashion, but just live as though it is the last time you're going to see that person that's walking with his head down, and you say good morning, and he won't even lift up his head to say good morning.
Mm-hmm.
That's very disturbing. Walking down to the boat ramp yesterday and today, and people passing you by, and that's good morning. Hey, how's it going? And everybody else doesn't even give a shit.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit. They got their head down. I don't know what they're afraid of, or what the deal there is. But why are you? And that's kind of weird, because people are genuinely friendly now in today's environment. Maybe you can't be that friendly, but you would think in a small walking down a board dock, you're there for the love of the water and the love of the boats, and you could say good morning, and somebody could, but
Yeah.
nobody spoke to me first. That was me speaking to them first. And I just don't that's just so bad to think that and that's kind of unusual. Normally when you and I approach somebody, somebody's going to say, yeah, come on, bring it. Let's say respond back.
But
I just
you
don't
never,
understand that.
number one, you never know what someone else is dealing with. And number two, you
True.
also don't know, by you saying good morning to that person, that may have made that person realize, wow, that was really kind that that person spoke to me. And that may change the outlook for the rest of their day because no one else did. So it shouldn't deter you from being, again, going back to just be a good person to your, when I
Mhm.
run and I see another runner, I always say, how's it going? Have a good day. Some people, there are ones that look at me like I'm crazy. Like I'm running here, I'm in and I'm just like, I don't care. Because I'm outside, the sun is shining, I'm moving my body, and I'm not dead. And so I'm like, I feel good. I'm gonna say hello. And
Well,
it's,
I hear you
you
on
know,
that. That's a great point. I mean, when I go
you
on my walks, if there's cars passing me by, I'm waving, and they're
wave.
waving back, and
That's
they're
right.
waving back.
That's right. Just
So it's become a game of who's going to wave first. And I
it's
mean,
it's like invest in humanity. Invest in yourself. Invest in yourself being a good person. And it's kind of like that saying, like, pay it forward. Just you think, if I do something
Yep.
good, not only will that do good for me, it will do good for others, and good comes around. So I really appreciate the conversation, Dad. Just to kind of close it out, like I truly do. And I love talking about this stuff with you. I like that we can talk about it openly, and because a lot of people can't talk about this stuff. They're so like, well, you're, that I will say, I do not like when someone tells me like, well, you're wrong. You're 100% wrong. And the fact that you don't even, you're going to go to hell. It's like, well, come on now. Like, let's not, let's not jump off that bridge. So I think it's important that people be able to talk about these things and be able to learn from each other. And I learn from you all the time. You share stuff that you've researched, and I find it fascinating. I truly do. And I will
Well,
always be open to talk about it and learn. I can promise
Well,
you
we
that.
can't. Yeah, I understand, and I mean at a younger age, and you're exactly right. When you're indoctrinated into something that you totally believe in, and you just, how can you not see that? How can you not see that? You got to let go of that. And I mean, that's something that you do learn with age. There is no reason to get into a disagreement over religion. There's no reason to get into it. Somebody's going to believe what they want to believe. That's fine. But like I said, the reason they're bringing it forward is there's no reason why we can't have a conversation about it, and not to make a point, but just to acknowledge the fact that there is good in this world, and it would be nice to know that that other people do feel the same way, or other people are searching for the same things. And that's my point, is I've searched as well. I've doubted as well. But to come back and just say, it didn't come from it. This dust didn't come from just nobody. It's when you start digging into it, it's a miracle that anything that you can scrape your hand on the ground with and pick up off of it, it came from somewhere that can be explained, and some things that can't be explained.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's one thing that I think, and I hate to tell you this, but Todd's book's not on Audible, but you're going to have to read it.
Oh, I'll actually read it. I'll go with that.
There are miracles that occur around
all the time.
All the time.
And
better yet, waking up every morning is a miracle.
This is true.
Look at it that way.
Well, I love you, Dad. I love your big heart. I love your big heart. That's for sure. Real quick, because we have not really said this, but we updated the website to include a link to purchase our headwear here. This is the charcoal gray with the black mesh back. This is the trucker snapback on the website. Check them out. Go to twoclicksinapod.com. I believe it says shop or merch. Maybe it says merch. It probably says merch. Go to merch. We got 4 different options. And if you're interested, you just click that and we'll get that sent out to you. So, all right, we'll get out of here.
Okay, honey.
I'll talk to you soon.
Tell everybody there hello. And all right.
Love you. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in today. With so many podcasts out there, we are grateful you chose to spend your time with us.
And we'd love to hear from you. So send us your questions, comments, and feedback to info@twoclicksinapod.com, and we might feature your message in a future episode.
Also, don't forget to follow us on social and head over to our YouTube channel where you can watch the full episode live and in living color. You can find us at 2 Clicks in a Pod. That's 2, as in the number, clicks in a pod.
Well, James, until next time, love you.
Love you too, Daddy.